Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and as always it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today I'm taking a look at Surf World Series, and if you're surprised by that, it's not even close to the surprise I've felt while playing it. Not really since the heady days of, say, TNC Surf Design have I really wanted to or enjoyed a surfing game. Titles have come and gone, yes, and even for a lesser well-known sport on the console, I think it's always had some kind of representation. But you know what, I think there are a few people out there who really haven't at least once wanted to channel their own inner Bodhidharma and point break it across some bitchin' snappers, and here comes Climax Studios to answer that desire. Surf World Series is out August 29th for the PC and a day later for the Xbox One and PS4 at a suggested retail price of around $14.99. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Surf World Series. Getting more air than people who switch cell phone plans, some of the best crashes known to man, and yep, there are indeed sharks in this game. Graphics are at first. You know, I have to admit, it's Dark 30, you're in deep on a monster wave and you pull off a move that might as well just be called gravity. What's that? And that, my friends, is when I feel that this game absolutely shines. And while not one of the most detailed of games, when you're cranking down a wave and lightning's crashing behind you, beaches and the waves and the weather are all incredibly immersive and make you actually feel like you're there, at least far more than prior titles. Is this one of those over-the-top bombastic surfing games? Yes, in many ways it is. It's the equivalent of Michael Bay directing Titanic and then having Rose and Leonardo hang 10 to safety on the board, instead of course, her realizing Leonardo would be a bad dad and letting him freeze to death like she did in the movie. For example, countless times thunderstorms are going to be cracking around you as you spin a 360-degree turn and then flash into that pose that video game characters get when they break and they look like digital Jesus. And it's those interesting times that I absolutely feel like the excellent use of lighting, reflection, refraction, and just overall texture mapping and shader work make the water and the different locations really work together to offer you this overall fiction. For example, the waves from Australia and its sun-bleached resorts look nothing like those off the rainy Pacific coast, and how the character bobs and weaves and reacts to the waves as they're choosing which one to paddle into is also well done. Also, while not perfect, I was very impressed with the formation and the movement of the waves, and seeing a wave break to your left and right simultaneously in a really mushy area is actually fantastic, with a fine sheen of misty spray at the top of the waves, like some kind of warning that if you go on top of that, you will never hit the bottom. Additionally, the animations for the characters themselves are pretty well done. Now, let's be honest, there are only two things you're looking at here, which is the wave and the rider, and overall, the attention to detail for weight, position, and adjustment and stance is excellent, but I think it's pretty much where we'd expect for a game like this. Not all is perfect here though, sadly, especially on some of the more basic moves, but even more so, just when you start pulling off a large number of moves very fast, the game can get overly lenient on its positioning and how it looks like you're landing, and sometimes you land on a board sideways on the wave and come out free of damage, when the truth is that would result in you cratering into the water with the coiled up energy of a friggin' atom bomb. Also, anything that isn't player or water looks terrible. Luckily, most of the time you're seeing players and waters, or you're seeing sunbeams cresting over dawn waves versus what looks like a shantytown from a Sega Saturn game in the distance if you ever see the actual shoreline. Now, customizable characters and boards round out the overall presentation, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with the massive number of unlocks and ways you could design your board, wetsuit, and just overall look. Now, when it comes to playing it and your performance on your PC, this thing, of course, doesn't require a ton. You can get 4K at 60 frames per second easily on a 1080 with any kind of modern CPU. Yes, it's a surfing game, but for the most part, Surf World does the most with what it has. And in a weird way, the moment you say, yes, it's just this kind of game, you almost always expect somebody to take the quick way out. And instead, we don't see that here. Sound, music, and voice. You know what? Let's do sound first. This is just incredibly well done. You know, we've talked about it before with constant rain or water playing for longer than maybe 60 seconds. It starts to sound like static to the human ear, and yet Here, their strong work with variation and different smaller effects means that even after 10 hours of playing the game, I never got to the point of going like, oh god, I gotta turn this down, or even the incredibly low rumble of fading off into a wave's tube and being surrounded on all sides by about 1 trillion liquid tons of I wanna kill you, and it's done spectacularly well there. When pulling off the larger special moves, the world goes into a visual and auditory slowdown, and instead of just slowing it down, it's actually somewhat accurately adjusted and becomes this odd focus moment that you can actually use. I really like that. Overall, excellent sound. Music. Okay, so warning up front, this is obviously going to be hit and miss for many people, but to me, this is a masterwork at picking titles that fit both the gameplay but also the overall tradition, themes, and elements of surfing as a whole. It doesn't mean you'll like them, it means it fits here though. Spectacular tracks that aren't afraid to smash new age ambient synths in the mouth and remove those and replace them with some punk beats and various vocals. In fact, at times, it actually feels a little bit like you're playing a movie montage, the way the music plays out. And if you don't like it, of course, you can just turn it off. Despite these various genres of music being far from my favorites, I think this is wonderfully done and shows a perfect ear towards understanding your environment. Voice. None. So let's move on. Gameplay. So as the game starts out, well, yep, that's pretty much it. There is no story. You have a many-step tutorial to teach you the basics. Trust me, you'll want to do it. And then you have free surf, events, and online with options and character customizations rounding it out. Regardless of the form and function, the various modes sort of offer you. The one thing that doesn't change in Surf World is that while all the tricks are the meat of the meal, speed is the flavor. If you don't understand how to gain and wick off speed, you're going to have a terrible time in Surf World. And I admit, it actually took me a while to sort of lock into what speeds offered what chances to pull off what moves. It's a great ebb and flow of building up your combo meter, pulling off moves, and twisting back on yourself. And just as you're getting ready to pull off your best kneeling Jezebel 360 twist, you notice you're not going fast enough and twist back around. Luckily, the control in the game is actually pretty spot on, and the only rough spots are the fact that sometimes the game lets you go wide on either side, which can result in the camera actually not seeing you for just a brief moment. Now, when it comes to your moves, you have things like spins, grabs, and then your specials, of which there's actually a good amount, adding more buttons to combos as you power up your combo meter. You also have the ability to land perfectly if you hit the bumper just right the moment you land, and you can do that on pretty much any move you pull off, which adds, of course, points to your tally because, you know what, anything worth doing is worth doing and looking awesome at the same time. Now, while free surf allows you to jump into any beach, adjust its weather, and just play until you're done, the events mode is a large set of single-player events spread across multiple different skill groups and expectations. And let me tell you, the game ramps its difficulty up quite quickly, especially when it comes to those expectations. At first, you're going to be like, man, I'm doing incredibly well. I'm like Keanu Reeves after that montage and just suddenly night surfing the next day. But go into these later events and some of those leaderboards and just overall some of the scores are going to be a very telling experience. Now, when it comes to multiplayer, it can be public or private party. You can do 3 types of game, which is sort of a big heat battle, championship, and survival. And it is true that while you do see sharks in the game, unfortunately, survival mode doesn't have you battling them off with a container of sex wax and your board line. It's basically riding to the end of an epic wave and has you trying to outdo other surfers, choosing waves all under a time limit and averaging your scores and comparing them against leaderboards. Where Wipeout is a bit like survival mode, but instead of being game over, it just includes a massive points penalty and then you're back at it. Here's the thing, there is one spot that is really puzzling to me in this game, and it's where I felt that it was sort of stripped of some of its excellence, and that's when you're actually in the wave's tube. You can't really even choose your stance, and you can't do much aside from balance board your way through the tube until you're ready to come out of it, like some waterborne Tomb Raider high wire trick. I tried everything. This is the one spot where it feels like Surf World Series missed a tremendous opportunity, even if it just came to animation and making you feel like you're there. Not that you should be pulling off backflips, but just sitting down doing nothing is what constipated campers do, not surfers. At least not usually. And of course that brings us to fun factor. You know, I can't surf. The closest a board and a wave and I will probably come together is at some time when the ship I'm on sinks. But in the end, I really enjoyed my time here. It's not perfect. I really wasn't a big fan of what you can or can't do while you're in the wave's tube. And I certainly feel that those multiplayer events didn't feel as if they were different enough. Additionally, the multiplayer, while you can do your own public and private servers, you're really not smashing into one another on the wave or anything like that. It's more just sort of a collected lobby, almost like the pre-lobby before a video game. It's still fine, but I really wish there was a little bit more there. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. And of course, rent is replaced by deep, deep sale in the case of PC titles. And this is absolutely a buy, especially if you're a surfing fan. If you're not, you can at least check it out with their free demo that they're offering, which is very cool of them. You can jump into the free demo and at least check it out. It really does feel like this epic surfboard montage for most of the game, and I like that. It felt right. The control was really good, and though there were some things missing and I would have liked a little bit of an extension, it doesn't mean that they can't add it later. For this price, there is a tremendous amount of just overall relaxed enjoyment to be had. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And remember, Patreon is the one way where I can continue to give you guys reviews that aren't filled with sponsored bullcrap, so check it out. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.